Alright, I'm going to try to make this a relatively quick video. This is going to be covering installing a USB slash aux port in place of the factory cigarette lighter specific to an IS300. I'm not covering the removal of the shift bezel. There are other videos online covering that. I just want to kind of cover the exact placement of this. So I've got everything out, got everything cleaned. I'm going to include a link to this setup here. It's basically got a AUX and USB right in the face there, and then I chose the 3-foot option, which is more than enough to reach the back of a head unit. Each plug there. These are the two locking nuts that will fasten the USB bulkhead into the bezel, and then we have our actual bezel here with the cigarette lighter in place. To start with, we're going to move this to the side. The factory plug here is held in by a few clips. So what we need to do... Okay, so much for one shot. It's been 14 days. My fingers feel like they're bleeding, but I have finally decoded how to take this apart for YouTube's well-being. Alright, so it's about like a Rubik's Cube. It doesn't make any sense and I hardly solved it. Let's see, so it's got this sheath around here. This pretty much just pulls up. It's got 2 weak clips on the sides if you have to, but mine pretty much just came right out. That's the easy part. Now we're down to the, let's see, this is the actual coil, I believe, for the cigarette lighter. It's got the lighted bezel around it, and there's another bezel on the outside. So to do this, there is, I probably won't be able to catch it on camera, on the inside, let's see here, you can hardly see it down there, if you can even at all. There's a small green tab inside the side of this cigarette lighter. This would be, I guess if it was in the car, it would be closer to the driver's side on a left-hand drive car. You're going to press that little tab out while pushing on the coil itself. So I'm going to try to do that real quick. I don't know how well it'll be on camera. Alright, so now once that starts moving, we're getting somewhere. So we're going to push this up a bit. The coil can only come out of the body one way. Pretty much the way it's sat in there, it's got to come straight out. So we'll go ahead and just push that all the way out. So now we've got the coil separated from it. Now this part is a bit easier. It's got 2 little push tabs here on the side, on the sides of the lighted housing. So let's see. You can see I'm actually going to need to use a small flathead. Push that in. Now this starts to come out. That falls out as a hole. And now this is just basically held on by those same clips. So you'll press those in. This bezel comes down off of that. So now we can throw out, unless you would ever put it back in your car, throw out pretty much all of these components. Those will not be reused. This black bezel will be reused. I'm going to clean mine real quick, and then I will, we'll start a new clip. Alright, I've cleaned the bezel. That's all done. Now we're going to take the shift bezel. This drops in. There's a tab here on this one that lines up with the hole in that. So we just index those together. That seat's in there. Nothing holds this in. What's going to hold that in is going to be the actual USB. It's going to clamp it in there. So we just get this set in there. We'll get that centered. Now at this point we'll take the cables for the USB aux setup. I'm going to fish these through the hole, feed it all the way in. Alright. And now I personally want the USB closer to the driver. I'm just going to square them up like that. Really the indexing on this doesn't matter, just personal preference of how you use stuff. Now we'll take the first larger flange nut. That's going to be the actual bulkhead nut. We have to also fish this through the wires. So I'm going to lay this out so it's easier to trace. And then I'm also going to, while I'm at it, fish the second nut on, the non-flange nut. That one will go after the flange nut as a lock nut. So get these fed on there. Alright, so now that those are fished up on there, I'm going to start fastening the flange lock nut first. Make sure I don't cross thread this. Get it started on there. And then I'm just going to start the lock nut right behind it. Alright, so now this one, now that I'm getting closer, I have to make sure that this is centered up again. Make sure the bezel's seated in there. It looks like it's popped out a little bit. Let's see here, get that dialed in. There we go. So that's snapped into place. Turn it so the USB is closer to me. And make sure that that's seated as well. Get that about square. Alright, final check. It's about square, it looks like. Make sure it's seated in there nice. And now just finish tightening up the flange nut first. These are all plastic components, so you don't need much. Let me just get this tight off camera. Snug it up best I can. It's a little awkward in between the cigarette lighter, or I guess the ashtray I should say, and the side of the bezel, but it doesn't have to be very tight, just enough to hold it. Really from the top there's no leverage to twist it any, so you don't really have to worry about getting out of index as long as you snug it up half decent. Alright, then last but not least, I'm going to snug up the locking nut on the top. Get that snugged up to it just a little. Alright, so now both of those are fed through. The nut is tight, holding everything together, and then I've also fastened the lock nut to keep everything tight. Now you can see it's pretty much flush. Doesn't sit up over anything. And now you have a USB and aux port readily available. A little more useful than the cigarette lighter. On the car side of things, I'm not going to include that in the video. That's extremely self-explanatory. There's just a aux and a USB. Both of these, in my application, are just going to plug directly into the back of my radio head unit. It has two USB ports and a aux port. So I'll just go into those. They'll both be functional, charge my phone. If you do not have a head unit with a aux port at the back of it, some have it at the front, some don't have one at all. You could always wire this in the car hidden to a 12 volt to USB adapter, and then just plug this, keep it under the bezel, and then it would just be a charging port for USB. I'll try to locate a link and just include that in the description as well for people who may go that route. But other than that, at this point, I'll just fish it up behind my dash, right into the back of the head unit, and I'll be ready to go. It's a little bit more modern, and just something small I wanted to do to my IS. Hope this helps someone. Mainly the disassembly that kicked my ass pretty good. So hope this works for everyone. Thanks.